Welcome to California in Focus. I'm Dave Mason, the Southwest editor with the Center Square. I'm here today with Kenneth Schrupp, the reporter covering California for the Center Square. Well, Kenneth, we have a story that seems to have some impact on gas prices. Already, California has the highest gas prices in the country. We've had that dubious distinction for the last few years. What is the latest happening with the Phillips 66 refinery?
Hey, Dave. In Los Angeles, we don't really have many refineries left. There's the Phillips 66 refinery, which is producing about 8.6% of the state's refining capacity, and the Marathon refinery, which is significantly larger. If we do lose Phillips 66, which is now scheduled for shutdown in October, we're going to have to rely on imports from all over the world, maybe even Asia, for actually getting our fuel needs met. This means gasoline is going to get really expensive because shipping refined fuel across the ocean isn't just expensive, it's also dangerous. This could mean there's higher risk of leaking out all of this refined product into the water. It's highly refined, so it's highly explosive. Really not sure how this is an environmental win.
Impact of this can go beyond California because of the possible impact on Nevada and Arizona. What is up with that?
Yeah, because of certain EPA rulings and regulations, a lot of Arizona and Nevada has to use special California gasoline in order to reduce the pollution and emissions in very smoggy areas. This means that California's refinery output is closely tied to that of the consumers in Arizona and Nevada. We've already seen how this connection plays out when in early February, there was a fire at the Martinez refinery in Northern California when they were doing some pre-maintenance work. The place caught on fire and regulators stopped any repair work for about 2 weeks so that the accident could be investigated. Well, stopping 2 weeks of production at one of California's last 9 gasoline-producing refineries resulted in huge price spikes, not only in California, but in Nevada and Arizona as well. But this is something that the governors of Arizona and Nevada have warned us about. The Democratic governor of Arizona and the Republican governor of Nevada joined together to warn Gavin Newsom not to adopt new rules that would make it harder for refiners to stay in business. But given that Newsom had actually called the special session to put these regulations in place, well, he didn't veto them when they were approved by the Assembly and Senate at his request.
And I know, of course, Gavin Newsom and other Democrats in California have been very supportive of moving the state toward clean energy. But the problem with that, of course, is that we still use cars. We still use gasoline-powered cars. We still must contend with prices at the gasoline pumps. What do you see?
Yeah, but one thing I think people don't realize is that it's not just gasoline. There are a lot of products that we use from refineries that make our economy go. These refineries produce everything from lubricants to jet fuel and the diesel that's used to transport most goods across the country by train and by truck. Now, we do have most of the country's imports coming into the port of Los Angeles. If we are losing our supply of diesel that will actually get these goods to the rest of the country, we're going to see the prices for everyone in the country go up from these imported goods, possibly in excess of what the tariffs might do.
Where do you think the story will go next?
Well, last year, California also did approve a tightening of the low carbon fuel standard. That's a $162 billion fuel cost hike that's going to fund credits for clean fuels such as EV charging and hydrogen. Remember also, consumers don't actually get those credits. It's the makers of the clean fuels, so the owner of the EV charging network, the owner of the hydrogen network that gets the credits. So, is the consumer going to benefit? I don't really know. What we do know is a lot of EPA waivers have been granted to California could be on the chopping block because, quite frankly, they may have gone too far. We look at a lot of states who have adopted California's regulations for air. California is allowed to regulate its own air in excess of EPA regulations because it has been around and regulating those emissions longer than anyone else. This is because California did have a real smog problem. It actually was very bad. We actually did need our own gasoline to fight smog in the LA basin. That's sort of not in question. The question now is, to what extent can California regulate emissions in a way that impacts everyone, not just Californians? And that's a question we'll see answered probably by the Supreme Court in the coming years.
Well, thank you, Kenneth, for talking about this with us. And that is it for California in Focus. Thank you all for joining us. Please go to thecentersquare.com for more news from California and the rest of the nation.